you kind of highlighted at the end there, like oftentimes the summer is not necessarily about going, above and beyond and going completely outside of your norm in terms of training. But for the most part, it's about coming back ready and prepared and ready for what the fall is going to bring, so that you're not taking, 3 steps just to catch back up. You're taking 3 steps to hopefully move forward come September, where you're not spending that first 6 weeks playing catch up. And I think I love the 30-minute because, again, like it's a storyteller workout where, and this is something I talk about all the time with high school kids. And I actually had this conversation last night with an athlete where it's just, you want to think about, like, you don't necessarily need to train for 2K all summer, even though that's your goal. What you can do is you can do a storyteller workout, like a 30-minute, a 5K, a 6K, which to me trains the base of the pyramid, which long term we both know is really, that's how you really push the top end. The 2K speed is by having a big base, the aerobic engine, as you highlighted. You can tell the story by training for the things that actually carry a little bit more long-term value. And so for that, right, if you're talking about a 208 and you're trying to have every athlete show 736 split or fitness, that's a 14 split difference, right? So from the 208 to the 154, okay, well, now you know that, hey, if you're going 204 for 30 minutes out of 22, okay, well, now you're close to sub 720 fitness, right? If those correlations, kind of equate to one another. And that to me is like the beauty of the summer, where you can tell a lot about future performances by doing workouts like that are actually a little bit easier and a little bit more feasible in the summer. Like, it's easier to sit down and do a 30-minute at a rate 22 than it is to do a 6K at a rate 28 to 30, right? Like, it's a different beast. One's a little bit more, again, just grind it out at the power per stroke. The other one has, a little bit of that, skill that you have to really train for. But with that, one of the things, Delaney, I want to really dive into, again, I think for every athlete out there listening, like, just hearing from a Division I coach how Division I college athletes are prepping for the fall, like, you can do that at any level, high school, D3, D1, whatever it may be, club, if you're trying to kind of get the most out of these next few months. But with that, one of the things you said a few months ago when we had our last podcast, kind of right before spring racing, I think it was, you had this quote that's been stuck in my head for the last few months. And I say it all the time now when I'm talking to athletes, but results lag training. You put that into your, again, one of our conversations on the podcast a few months ago, and it's been stuck in my head because I think there's a lot of power to it. Where the chasing of results, the chasing of the numbers, the chasing of the performances are kind of a step behind or lag behind the work that you put in. And one of the things I've been processing a lot recently, and I think it's helpful for the audience as they think about the summer, is outcome versus process oriented goals, and just falling in, or the ownership of the process rather than focusing only on the outcome. And this is something that I've been constantly kind of reviewing in my head as I talk to athletes, as I think about myself and all these different things. But results lag training, I wanted to take an opportunity today, because I think it's very applicable to the summer as you wrap your head around moving into the training for these next few months, getting ready for the fall, as you start to get clarity on your results. Just whatever comes top of mind. I know I didn't prep you for this at all, but whatever comes top of mind, like, just elaborate on that a little bit. Results lag training, and just anywhere you want to take it.
Yeah. Well, you were just kind of talking about it in a way with the, what did you call them? Like, not predictor workouts. What was the word you used?
Storyteller workouts.
Yeah. Like, so, you could do a 30-minute right now in June, and, say you go 205. If you got on the erg tomorrow and pulled a 2K, more than likely, unless you've been doing some higher intensity stuff, that 2K is probably not going to line up right with that 205. Like, if I was looking at our speed chart. However, if you continue to train your aerobic base, like we were just talking about, on that speed line of that 205, you're getting fitter and fitter and fitter. And you're building this engine that's going to have the ability to go, I think what 205 ends up being like a 720, 725-ish.
14 splits,
2K,
yeah.
Right? Maybe, in December or January when you start incorporating more of that sort of like prep work in your training. So that's where I think you have to have the patience for like that end result does lag behind. Like you're doing the aerobic work on the right pace, right, at the right intensity level for enough duration today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow you're going to get the 2K outcome that you want. Oftentimes it takes a lot of preparation, both physical and mental, because that's a whole other hurdle to getting the most out of your performance as well, is like, how are you mentally approaching the test? We both have probably seen many athletes over the years who physically have the ability to go whatever the speed is, sub 7, sub 6, but who mentally may not be there yet. Their preparation might not be there yet of how they get themselves, in the headspace to be able to do that. So there's all these other factors that go into like that end result. So that's sort of how I think of it, is like the training you do today doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that 2K score tomorrow. But it probably means that at some point down the line in the next however many months, it's 100% possible if you continue to train well and train, on the speed line or whatever it is, whatever your coaches use to gauge where you need to be at on any given workout. You're going to find yourself in a position to be able to do that.
And one of the things I tell athletes all the time, because again, every conversation I have, it's always the first thing they say is, I want to get my 2K down to this. I want to get my 2K down to 8 minutes, 7:40. If they're a high school boy, they want to break 7 or break 6:40 or break 6:30. And what I always tell them, I ask them a kind of a deeper why, like, hey, why do you want to do that? What's the main goal? What's the main objective? Is that for, just pride? Is it for, getting ready for the fall? Is it for recruiting? Well, there's different answers for all those questions, right? If it's for getting ready for the fall, well, guess what? Most teams aren't doing 2Ks in the fall, so you might as well focus on 5K or 6K, which to me is a little bit more of something you can do longer term and is more sustainable. But I think one of the things that you want to think about is, okay, well, if your goal is right for any athlete, right, for one of your athletes, if your goal is to be a sub 720 athlete, okay, well, what do you have to do this summer rather than going straight up for 720, every week because you want to do 2Ks? Again, it's more applicable to the high school athletes who have a little bit more stakes attached to it, right? If I want to break 8 minutes or I want to break 750, whatever, but we're just going to use what we've kind of been talking about, right? If an athlete in your boathouse is like, hey, Coach Delaney, I really want to break 720 next year, and all they're doing is, 2K, 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 and they're at like 732, they might go to from 732 to like 728 just from learning how to test it a little bit better. But like you said, where the results lag the training, a better approach that they could take that is actually a little bit more mentally sustainable as well, but is also going to yield way better returns long term, is, okay, well, that's a 150 split. I know that 30-minute and 2K are about 14 splits apart. Well, what do I have to do to break 204 for 30 minutes at a rate cap 22? And okay, well, I want a little bit more assurance that my fitness is at sub 720 pace. What do I need to do to break 2 minutes or 202, right? 2 minutes would be aggressive, right? You're dropping that many splits. But what do I have to do to break 202 this summer, right? Well, now 14 splits. Well, now I'm clearly well under what the charts are saying in terms of being able to break 720. And you don't have to choose to go that path, because you really have to make a choice, right? What are you prepping for? Are you trying to build the engine, or are you trying to just get the 2K down for whatever external reason that you're trying to navigate? Well, how about have both, right? How about train in a way that sets you up long term for the fall, for the winter, all these different things, and let the 2K fitness be a byproduct of that, where pretty confidently, hey, you know what, this fall I broke 202 for 2K. I still haven't done a 2K, for 30 minutes, sorry. I broke 202 for 30 minutes. I still haven't done a 2K, but I'm pretty confident on that first one I should be breaking 720, right? Because that's only 12 splits difference. I'm in a pretty good spot, right? And that you could take that for boys, for college athletes, both men and women going for whatever, right? Like, workouts tell a story. And if your fall test is a 5K, right, which is very common for high school athletes, okay, well, maybe that's 7 to 9 splits difference, whether you're a high school boy or a high school girl, right? Okay, well, you want to break 8 minutes. What can you do to get your 5K under 207?
Yep.
Right? Under 209 even, right? To kind of put yourself in the fight. If you're a high school boy and you're trying to break 7 minutes, okay, well, can you get that thing down to 152 for 5K? Right? And the correlation aligns, but you're emphasizing that base of the pyramid rather than just the peak. And last thing, and I'll let you kind of chime in here because I know I'm rambling, which I do. But I've been having this conversation a lot with athletes in the sense that if you put 2K at the top of the pyramid, right, that's kind of like this is your engine as it currently stands. And you have two decisions, right? You can either refine the fuel that goes into the engine, right, and maybe get a little bit of marginal gains and this and that. Or like you said, this summer, you can focus on why not building a bigger engine, right? Because you widen that base, well, now the peak is going to be at a higher point. And you don't necessarily need to see that on paper today. It's going to come down the line because you're going to do other stuff at, down the line. But take this summer and build that wide base, right?
Yep.
And, whatever the peak of that base is, it might be 30-minute or 6K or whatever it may be, but train for that and you're going to start to see an elevation. Anyway,